is Endrian, Editor-in-Chief of Brand News, and this is the Financial Services News You Might Have Missed podcast. This is where I uncover news gems that might not have gotten their full chance to sparkle, and I dust them off a little bit. I'm joined by my trusted co-host, and more importantly, my personal financial advisor, Brandon Galisi of Galisi Financial. Brandon, how's your day been?
Day's been pretty good so far. We've got a bit more sun out here in Southern California, which for the listeners might be thinking, isn't it always sunny? And probably, 90% of the time, yes. But yesterday or even the day before, it's been a bit more gray. We've got a little bit of rain. So, I'm now spoiled out here. So we got the sun back out. So things are well. How's your day? How's your Thursday going?
It's colder than it is where you are, and I take it the show should have been It's Always Sunny in Southern California, but whatever.
Right. Or It Never Rains in Southern California. That's a lyric in a song. Not entirely true, but it's mostly.
Good to know. Very cool. So our first piece of news this week is from AtoZ Communications Network member Bento Engine and Event Advisors. They have a new partnership called Bento Events in a Box, which gives users access to a new suite of materials that can help deliver impactful client or prospect events focused on moments that matter. If you're not familiar with those, that would be something like moving to another state or approaching 62 and needing to figure out how you're going to handle Social Security benefits specific to your own situation. Materials could be used for either in-person or virtual events and include things like invitations, confirmation emails, and follow-up materials. I thought that this was super interesting. By the way, I love the name. So pointing to like the bento box. Oh, that's cute. But I think that this is great because, as we've said before on the podcast, you move so much further with somebody on the know, like, trust factor when you get to see how they are and you understand their mannerisms and whatnot. So I would hope that this would be just an added whammy of, wow, you are super cool. And on top of that, you're talking about something that I really need to understand. I would love to hear what you think about it.
I think the coolest aspect of Bento is one of my favorite words, proactive, where it's proactive, but also what you just brought up there, Allie. It's not just being proactive and, oh, hey, Allie, how are you doing? Let me check in. Like, things are good. Great. Like, those can occasionally be okay, but it's like, well, why did you just check in? And we had nothing at all to talk about. So I think when it's relevant and it's meaningful, of course, the example that you shared and that was in the article, when someone's getting closer to 62, hey, we need to have a discussion. They may not take it at 62, but that is something that's very relevant to them and their situation right away. I think there's going to be, at least I think, more of a move in the financial industry to some of these proactive touch points on, again, relevant things in the client's life. Because if it's just, oh, call me when you have a question, it's like, well, as a client, you don't know what you don't know. And most people probably understand that I can take Social Security at some point in my 60s, although a lot of folks are like, I can't take it until 65 or 67 or 70. And well, that's not technically true. Depends on your unique circumstances, but technically you can take it earlier, depending. But even just being able to be that guide for someone and being able to, even on the front end, sell your more proactive service offering. I know, at least for me, I have a very proactive model as well. And it's a lot easier to talk about that on the front end on, hey, how are you different? I'm going to reach out to you every single month on something that's relevant to you. Okay, that's probably pretty different. And I know Bento supports a lot of advisors and having a similar proactive model.
Yes, absolutely. I would be curious what you're hearing from financial advisors. So to me, even in this like very AI-centric world, I feel like events are going to be those things that stand out more and are done more for that reason, because we all get a million emails. Half the time they're like mailed to me that I don't open for like 2-3 weeks, which obviously I should be better about. I feel like it's that event that then captivates everybody and really moves the needle. But I wonder if advisors feel that way or if that's like an extra hassle. I would love to hear what you've been hearing.
So I don't know tons of advisors that are doing a lot of in-person events or even necessarily as many virtual events from maybe a client appreciation perspective. It's not something that I've personally done before. I'm certainly not opposed to the idea, but I think like anything, and I feel like I say this a lot on the podcast, what's the purpose behind it? Is it, I just want to get more referrals? That's probably not a great reason alone to do something like that, where how does it make sense for the client where it's not just, hey, show up on this Zoom. I have heard of some people doing a wine tasting where if people sign up, they'll get a box of wine and maybe some cheese or something like that actually sent to their house. And then someone leads the experience. And since you already have all of your things, you can do it. So I think there's got to be the thought process of how do we not just get people to show up, but want to show up. And even, again, it could be a referral opportunity, want to bring their friends, and not because we're just going to get on and talk about investments or even financial planning topics, but just make it an enjoyable evening. And for those that are building more practices that are more local, I feel like that it opens it up even more on what you could do on an in-person event experience type situation. So anecdotally, don't have a lot of experience with this, but I have heard that communicate or client events can definitely be successful. It's just always back to what's the purpose. How do you make sure that the client and whoever comes to the event is benefiting? Then, of course, with that, likely, you're going to build more trust and rapport too.
That's a very valid point. So getting to our second piece of news, this is from the CFP Board, which released a guide on navigating marital conflicts of interest. In its divorce guide, Navigating Divorce and Other Conflicts with Married Clients, the conflicts that they're concerned about would occur when a situation arises where the advice that they'd want to give one of the partners is actually basically against the best interest of the other party. If anybody is interested in learning more about that, there's going to be a webinar on November 6th at 2:30. I thought that this brought up something really interesting about, I hadn't thought of it from the sense of if you're married that you could still have conflicts of interest. It seemed like just if you're heading toward divorce, obviously at some point there's going to be some level of conflict, but I would love to hear your thoughts.
So I haven't thought as deeply about this, to be fully honest. I can't even really, there was one, but that was closer friends. But other than that, I haven't had a lot of clients who I worked with a couple and then they went separate ways. But I can absolutely see how there could clearly be some pretty large conflicts of interest in that particular setting because we're not able as planners to give legal advice, and a lot of the divorce aspect and divorce decree and who should get what is obviously not at all up to us as financial planners. So even how we navigate that and make sure that we're giving advice that's in the best interest. I learned even in my enrolled agent study on if you're doing a tax return for both spouses, you have to make sure that you're disclosing it and also that you truly believe that you're going to be able to provide great advice to both parties in that. And I would imagine that it would be relatively similar where you might only have to work with one of the spouses, especially in a divorce type situation, but haven't experienced it yet. Fingers crossed. Hopefully I don't have to experience it, but it's great that the CFP board is bringing something like this up because it's probably pretty likely to happen to most financial planners, I would say, at least once or more than once over the course of their careers. A good thing to be knowledgeable about.
But this also made me think, so in either one of our situations, and obviously anybody who's listened to this knows that I'm divorced and you were married. So when I had a financial advisor as I was married, nobody really approached me from the sense of, and maybe the instance just never occurred, but if something was in better interest for me but not for him and vice versa, nobody ever really talked about it in those kind of terms and let us think about it in a way that's, well, God forbid if something happens, and it did. How would you feel about it? And would that make you think differently about whether you should compromise in that situation and go with whatever is going to be good for whoever? I thought that brought up a very interesting topic.
Yeah, and even as I kind of think about it, I mean, I could see some of the advice being making sure that both spouses have retirement accounts where we're not just maxing out one of their retirement accounts, for example, but if possible, even something as simple as Roth IRAs, even if one of the spouses isn't working, if the other spouse makes enough income, which they probably do in this case, then they could have some of their own retirement account money. Now, that's not to say that typically in a divorce decree, one spouse just what's called the earning spouse has all of the investable K assets. For example, it's very likely that they end up having to split that in some capacity still. But I think sometimes, even when I'm working with couples, we want to both have, they don't really use the words like our own retirement accounts from a perspective of we want to plan separately, but it's just nice to each have their own retirement account because of course with IRAs, individual is the first word in that acronym. You can't have joint retirement accounts. So making sure that each has their own, so to speak, I think can maybe alleviate it. And two, typically the couples that I work with want that to happen anyways. Even if one is the higher earning, they want their spouse to also have a retirement account in their name too. And likely I'd say those couples are probably have a healthier relationship in general because they're already thinking that. So it could also be the classic, well, it just makes sense for them, but they're also strong as a couple too, as I ramble out loud. So yeah, what are your thoughts from my ramblings?
I'm glad that the couples that you're experiencing do want things to be a little bit more equitable and like you said, I can imagine even if God forbid that somebody passes and the paperwork isn't correct or whatever, it benefits you to have your own versus just relying on the other person's and waiting for that to transfer over. But it does make me wonder how much in financial planning when we're dealing with couples do we explain to people, ultimately, if you were single, I would tell you to do XYZ. because you are married and this is your circumstance, I'm going to tell you to do ABC. And I just want you to be aware of that and like reconcile those thoughts. Just make sure that that's what you want to do. I don't know if that happens.
I'm even trying to think, and maybe something will come to me after we stop recording, but nothing comes to mind from even right now. Like I said, that first example of each spouse having their own retirement account, if possible. Although again, like I said, that likely can be fixed, even if only one spouse has money. Probably in the divorce decree will end up getting split from that perspective.
Right.
I can't think of a lot of others. I mean, the only other thing that even comes to the top of my head are some couples may end up choosing to file separately from a tax perspective. Not very often. And even if their relationship is good, only because maybe one spouse is earning less money and they want to be on an income-based student loan repayment plan. That's, again, one very nuanced example. But I would say in that case, that still is benefiting the whole household.
Right.
Because the total household still ends up paying less in taxes by, again, that's a very nuanced case, them filing separately. So I wouldn't even say that, oh, that just benefits the lower earning spouse. No, it benefits the higher earning spouse too, because their overall, either it's their tax bill or overall cash flow, something is beneficial from, even again, in this nuanced example of filing separately. But even other than that, I can't think of many times that I would say, well, if you were single, absolutely go with this. But since you're married, I would suggest this instead. Again, yeah, feel free. Those that are listening, if you can think of some examples, feel free to write us in. I'd love to hear from them. We could also probably use some AI after this to figure out, but not too much is coming to the top of my head, at least.
Well, but if that's the case, then that's kind of comforting, because especially if you have a long marriage and then an eventual divorce or whatnot, it would feel kind of frustrating that like, well, this whole time I was working toward a joint goal and then ultimately I got shut out or whatnot. So that's good to hear that, even as we're thinking about it, that likely doesn't happen too many times.
Right. There's at least nothing glaring that I'm like, oh my goodness, this is totally different advice that I would give someone. So at least there's nothing glaring. Again, could there be some nuances? Sure, but there are more nuances, which means it's probably not impacting tons and tons of people.
Yes. If you're interested, CFP Board, check out that webinar. So our third piece of news is from Income Lab, which unveiled AI to, as the press release said, transform advisor efficiency and client engagement. It had 3 new tools, which are the AI Plan Builder, the AI Interviewer, and the AI Assistant. The Plan Builder takes unstructured data from things like notes during client meetings and helps create a comprehensive financial plan in seconds. Interviewer helps a client or prospect give information about key parts of their financial life. And the AI assistant, quote unquote, delivers direct, customized answers to advisors' questions, helping advisors best use Income Lab. So I was curious, I mean, I know that you're pro more AI usage and more comfortability in all of this, but I wonder to what extent this might be like taking AI a little bit too far.
Yeah, so one, full disclosure, I'm a user of Income Lab for the clients that do need a retirement income plan. I think it's incredible for that. I think for what it's doing, at least that I've heard, and I'll get to test this out through the end of the year, because it sounds like it's currently at least no additional cost for current users. So I think that's going to be cool to check out. And at least from my initial take from the article, it seems like a lot, Allie, is more we're taking maybe some unstructured notes, which even Hazel, the new altruist AI tool that came out a couple weeks ago, is I think there's going to be some really, really cool stuff with that. But being able to take some of that data and plug it into the tool, that's more of we'll call it a data gathering type of job, where that doesn't necessarily need to be done by a human. Now, I do think if advisors end up saying, oh, well, I'm not going to have to do my job anymore, and I'm just going to have AI build out my entire retirement income plan for a client and not do any double checks over it, okay, that's when it would be too far. But I would say that wouldn't be the tool's problem. That's the advisor problem. If they're doing that, I would say that there could be some duty of care if they're a certified financial planner that they might not be doing if they're just, oh, well, from my meeting notes, this is what the clients have said. And oh, here's their plan. Let me present it to them right now. It's like, well, no, we still absolutely need to do our human job of, one, confirming things are correct, and making sure everything's accurate, and then going through and having a reason to say, yep, I'm confident that based on your situation, you could spend $7,500 per month because of X, Y, or Z. So it shouldn't be replacing the advisor, which is what Income Lab specifically said. It's not to replace the advisor. I think it could help with the data gathering. But again, if we're too reliant on it and don't actually understand how Income Lab works in general, what the retirement guardrail strategy is, and we just try to lean on it exclusively, I think that's where an advisor would get into an issue. But again, that's more of a personal problem than anything else. But what were your thoughts as you kind of saw it? At what point would it be too far for you from an AI perspective?
When I saw Plan Builder in particular, and I appreciate the context that you gave because I think it shaped how I feel about the press release, but it made me think along the lines of, so similarly in my industry, you could have AI write a thought leadership article or a press release or whatnot. But if you took that wholesale and gave that to a reporter, there would be lots of different kind of problems, including the fact that reporters are now catching on to people just giving their thoughts to AI. They send that directly to a reporter. It matches what every other person just sent them, and then it's just bad. On the one hand, like, you can use AI to help you if you get stuck. If you're like halfway through an article, can you give me some ideas to like keep me going? The Plan Builder, when it sounded like it could create a plan for you in seconds, I was a little like, is that the equivalent of writing an article? And then, like you said, so then would I just take that wholesale and give it, or do I check it? But I feel like if I'm just checking it, that's not very original either. I don't know. I think our industries are different in that regard, but that just to me felt like it was like a tad bit too far.
That's fair. I think that's a great parallel where even in writing an article or even writing a piece of content, for example, if you just give AI a prompt and then have it spit out an answer and you pretty much copy paste it, I would call that an elementary use of AI at this point. And just like I would say the same thing of, sure, maybe you get some level of baseline plan in minutes. Now, again, I'd have to see what the outputs look like, but especially as things get more complex, and again, you're writing professional articles here, as things get more complex, it's only going to be foundational likely at best. It's still going to need the human to go in and not just do, oh, yep, check. Okay, now it's done. Let me go present it. But really making sure, again, especially if it is a more complex plan and this client does have a decent amount of assets with you, so let's assume the AUM model, they're probably paying you thousands of dollars a year at a minimum. It's worth your time, and it should be, to go in and make sure that everything is correct, and also use your human brain, the human certified financial planner as well, to go in and do it. Just like you're going to use AI as a brainstorm partner, proofreader, editor, and whatnot, it's still your words, your IP, and your thoughts. And I think, again, if advisors just, oh, yep, well, Income Lab has already done this all for me, I'm ready to go, people are going to be able to tell over time. And I don't think that's gonna work for the advisor long term either.
Well, we will see how it goes. So the final piece of news this week is from Canada's Financial Wellness Lab at Western University, which partnered with the National Payroll Institute and CI Wealth to create what they're calling a roadmap for emergency savings accounts that could come through payroll. The goal with these accounts would help people to feel less financial stress and therefore be more productive at work. NPI found that 51% of people worry about their finances while at work, and 6% of people take more than an hour and a half of their work time to be preoccupied with their finances. This has been leading to about $70 billion annually in lost productivity, which is double the rate that it was 4 years ago. So that's quite significant. So with this framework suggested by these groups, employees could either select to contribute to this account, and employers could choose to match that if they wanted to, or offer other incentives related to it. I know that we've discussed lots of different ways that people are being creative about how do we invest in our employees. I really liked this one, probably even more than I liked repaying student debt, but I would love to hear what you think.
Well, the first thing that jumped out to me was how they spelled paycheck in Canada. I guess they spell it differently. It's PAYCHEQUE. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out. That was one of the first things that jumped out. Not terribly insightful. Back to the serious aspect of it, I think this is great. Because from my experience, if someone says they're stressed out about their money, I can nearly guarantee you it's one of two things. It's either a high debt rate or high debt to income ratio. For whatever reason, once your debt to income ratio gets above 30-ish%, each person's a little different, but 30-ish%, things start to feel a little bit tighter because a third of your income is going away every single month. And the other very important one that this would be solving would be a lack of liquidity or lack of quick access to money, i.e. emergency savings or lack thereof. So I think this truly is low-hanging fruit, where if there's some sort of even match instead of a student loan, which again, I love the student loan idea as well. I think that's helpful for a lot of people. And maybe we just give people options. We want a 401k match, student loan match, or emergency savings match, I think will be helpful. But I truly believe for a lot of people, and it sounds silly, but even just getting a few grand in there, I think I saw in their tier one, it was, I think, $2,500 or something around there. Again, I know that's not enough likely for a fully funded emergency fund for most people. But when we look at the behavioral side of money and finance, trying to say if you have zero savings right now, get 3 months worth saved up seems so impossible that you're probably going to take zero action. But now if you bring in the employer and you have a payroll, so you literally don't even ever see this money. I mean, even if it came to you and you automated it, money comes into your account, you would see a transfer to your savings. In this case, sure, you see it on your pay stub, but that feels different. So money's automatically going into this that you know you can access. You're going to hopefully try to not access it unless you need it. But I really think that this is super low-hanging fruit for improved financial life and a peace of mind.
Yeah, agreed. So this 6% that's spending 90 minutes a day preoccupied with their finances, it made me think of, and there's going to be an article out about it in the coming weeks from Dr. Christy Archuleta. She's a great financial therapist. What she brought up is that there's a difference between financial stress and financial anxiety. It seems like we've sort of just been lumping those two terms together and kind of calling it all the same thing. But people who are that concerned that an hour and a half of my day, I can't do whatever it is that I'm supposed to do, whether it's manual, I'm sitting at a computer, I'm whatever, I'm just so fixated on how I feel. Like that's huge from a mental health perspective. Obviously, like they're outlining, there's a lot of productivity time that's lost. It just seems all around like it's very impactful.
Absolutely. I mean, another one of the stats from the article, 25% couldn't last 1 week if their paycheck was delayed. These are Canadian stats, but likely we're going to see pretty similar. Again, I don't have the numbers in front of me, of course, but I do know there are a lot of people, even six-figure earners, that are living truly paycheck to paycheck. And again, one way to break the cycle of that is two things: reducing some of the debt, because if you don't have as many debt payments, things held equal, that'll be a little bit more margin in your life. But then also providing that margin of knowing, hey, worst case, if something happens, it's not fun, but I've got the cash set aside. Or you're a government employee and maybe your paychecks are getting delayed right now as we currently have the government shutdown. Having some sort of buffer, again, doesn't solve the problem, and people are going to get paid the money eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later. But I'm sure that would just de-stress the financial life of so many people. And I keep saying financial life, but we're talking overall life too. Because if someone is spending 90 minutes, I mean, that's 6% of people. That's a lot of your day. Even if it's not 90 minutes, even if it's just a little bit where you hear the word finance and you just get more stressed out, and it's something as simple as get a couple grand. Again, that's not going to solve all of your problems, but it's going to give you just enough breathing room that likely you can then get some hope and feel a bit more confident in your situations. Again, I would love to see something like this in the United States where there's some emergency savings account payroll deposit, because I think it would really benefit a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're totally right, because how many people, like you said, whether you make a lot of money or whether you don't, are living more paycheck to paycheck. So then forcing basically you to think more about emergency savings and not be caught in those situations where I can't repair whatever it is, my car just died, anything, I think is great. So agreed. I would love for the US to get something like this. Anybody who's listening, if you can enact that, we would appreciate it.
Yeah. And I guess I'll leave one quick tip. Even if it's not a company match, someone could likely do something like this now. Typically, if you talk to your HR, you probably are able to split your paycheck into, I know a lot of companies will at least let you do 2 different accounts. So maybe you've got your normal checking account that you typically get paid into. You could likely tell your HR, of course, have to talk to them, say, hey, actually, can you send the X amount of dollars into my primary account? We'll call that your paycheck account. And then the other X dollars into this separate account, which could be your high yield emergency savings account. So that wouldn't necessarily be a match, and you would have to initiate this yourself, but likely you probably can do it even if you are in the United States right now. And that might be a great advice for someone out there that feels like they just can't get ahead with their emergency savings. We'll really automate it before you even see it touch your normal bank account, so to speak. Try to automate that with payroll. So just a quick tip for those that those who are listening.
Thank you. I learned something new today. Thank you.
There you go. You're welcome.
Cool. As always, thank you for delving into these topics. And I appreciate the fact that we just free flow, think however we think. And you always have brilliant thoughts. So thank you.
Well, this is a lot of fun. You come up with great news. You've got great thoughts as well. And already looking forward to our next conversation next week.
Thank you.